Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode I'm joined by co-host Greg Ramsey. From the pages of Marvel Comics to the silver screen, it's Earth's mightiest heroes heading for a showdown with the most powerful being they've ever faced, in a battle that continues to be one of the most epic stories ever told, and one that leads them to perhaps the final chapter as the unit that fans know and love. We're talking about Avengers: Infinity War. Released in the United States on April 27, 2018, and directed by the Russo brothers on a script from Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, Avengers: Infinity War was the culmination of an historic cinematic run that Hollywood has never seen before, as every Marvel film to that point contributed to this epic tale. With 18 films spanning 10 years, a legion of fan support, and staggering box office success behind them, Marvel took the Avengers to the war that had been teased from the very beginning. The Mad Titan Thanos was on his way to Earth, and the Avengers were the only ones capable of stopping him. The threat of Thanos had been hanging over the team since the first Avengers film, and the showdown with him was, just as he would say, inevitable. Infinity War was the biggest Marvel Comics film to date, as it included virtually every hero from the previous films. Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, Mark Ruffalo, Scarlett Johansson, Chadwick Boseman, and Sebastian Stan all reprised their roles, with Tom Holland's Spider-Man also joining in the fray. The movie focused on Thanos' quest to find all 6 Infinity Stones, which he planned to use against the universe. Thanos believed that the only way true peace could be achieved was to wipe out half of all living beings, and the Infinity Gauntlet was his chosen weapon to accomplish that mission. Everyone who tries to stand in Thanos' way in his hunt for the stones is shut down. By the end of the film, Thanos has all 6 stones and brings the fight to Earth. This film brought the Avengers back together for the first time since the team was splintered after the events of Captain America's Civil War. The heroes also found themselves fighting alongside Benedict Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange and the Guardians of the Galaxy, all of whom came together in defense of Earth. Infinity War was met with rave reviews from critics and fans alike, and became the first comic book film to gross $2 billion worldwide, shattering box office records along the way. It was the highest grossing film of 2018 and the 4th highest grossing film of all time in the United States and Canada. Thanks to the well-written characters, intense action, and emotional storytelling, Infinity War became an instant classic for fans, and it remains arguably the most epic Marvel film of all time. And that's the lowdown on Avengers: Infinity War. Moving on now to the second part of our Infinity War episode. So the last time we saw our heroes, Thanos was in pretty good shape. He had just taken Gamora out of the hands of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and he's on his way to Vormir with her to get his hands on a 4th Infinity Stone, the Soul Stone. And which means essentially that the main villain of this piece is on his way to gaining the ultimate power of the universe. We find the rest of the heroes scrambling, trying to get their wits about them, trying to get their feet under them, trying to come up with a plan, trying to do everything they can to stop the Mad Titan. But so far, things aren't looking good. But from this scene, we go back to Earth. And this movie does an excellent job of bouncing back and forth. A lot of screen time to be shared amongst the cast in this film, as it is obviously an epic. And a lot of cut scenes, a lot of moving the story around. It's a very fluid story. It hardly ever sits still. It hardly ever stays in one place. We have a lot of ground to cover, a lot of characters to visit, a lot of scenes to explore. A lot of different planets to explore also. But this time we're back to Earth. Captain America and his crew have taken shelter with James Rhodes and Bruce Banner at Avengers compound. We see 3D holograms of now Secretary Thunderbolt Ross and his people. They're telling Rhodes that Rogers, Vision, and the others are criminals. Well, Cap shows up along with his team. He tells Ross that they're going to fight. And if Ross stands in their way, they'll fight him too. We get a very awkward scene here, and it's actually referenced in the midst of this. by Rhodes himself, who just, says this is, awkward. And Banner shows up. It's an uncomfortable moment between him and Natasha. They definitely had a thing in Avengers 2. They were always close. And, at this point, it's as I said, it's very uncomfortable. But also the wheels start turning for the audience in terms of, okay, for those of us who have gone along on this ride from the very first Iron Man to this point, we've seen the natural evolution of these characters. Natasha was obviously enamored at one point with Bruce and he with her. And, there was a little bit of exploration there in terms of, could these guys actually be a couple? Could they make this thing work? Could they even make a go of it? And a lot of that happened in Age of Ultron, but, nothing materialized from it, unfortunately. And we get to the point now where, as I said, it's uncomfortable. She says hello to him and he very awkwardly says hello back. And it's one of those moments. And dude, Greg, I don't know how you feel about this, man, but as I'm watching this, as I said, the wheels are spinning and I'm actually thinking to myself, man, this would have been a very different looking film had these two actually gotten together and had an actual relationship. I mean, dude, we could be looking at a very different Avengers team and a very different film at this point.
Yeah, it's true. But I guess, for the sake of the stories to come, they couldn't let them, have a romance. And I mean, it's in a way it's tragic, but again, for the sake of the story, you have to put that aside because they have bigger and, grander things ahead. They've got these battles, and this is the big one, the big battle.
Oh, no question about it. No question about it. And valid point. I mean, hard to argue that. I mean, again, you tend to mentally think about these things and let your mind go other places and sort of craft a different version of the story in your head at times, I suppose. But yeah, I guess best to stick with the way they did it because in the end it does make the most sense. I can't really argue that point. So we go back to Banner here, who, by the way, once again is extremely lost. They've mentioned Scott Lang, of course, a.k.a. Ant-Man, and as the crew is brought up to speed, and Banner just stops and says, wait, there's an Ant-Man and a Spider-Man? Like, dude, he is so lost. And, it's funny because, again, this is Tom overthinking stuff, right? But when you get to really kind of dissecting this, he was on Sakaar for, I don't know, let's say our time it was a year. And he's been gone that amount of time. You could stretch it and say 2 years, maybe, I guess, if you want. I'm not sure what the actual Marvel timeline is in terms of how many months, how much time this guy was actually missing from Earth. But and also, really, if you think about it, how does time work on Sakaar? I mean, did he age differently there? Was it a year for us, but it was 5 for him? It just makes you wonder. Like, he comes back and Bruce doesn't look any older really than he did when he left, not particularly. But, I've always kind of wondered that. I don't really know the answer to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and of course he was the Hulk the entire time, so definitely
yes.
His mind would be fuzzy, and of course he missed a lot, on Earth. So he's kind of left out of the loop. He's trying to catch up, to everybody else. Like, wow, the Avengers broke up, all this other stuff happened.
And did the Hulk prevent Banner from aging?
That's a good point.
Yeah, dude. I mean, we don't know. Man, that's a nice rabbit hole to go down sometime. Maybe we'll have to do that at some point. Dude, I'm telling you, man, there's so much of this film that you could just take in other directions and just so many different places to go mentally. And again, it deviates from the original story, but maybe that's kind of the point. You can just let your imagination sort of run wild and, again, write your own movie at the same time you're enjoying this one. It's very cool stuff. So at this point, we get Banner suggesting that the Soul Stone can be removed because the Vision initially wants Wanda to destroy him because in doing so, she destroys the Mind Stone as well, and that keeps Thanos from getting his hands on yet another stone for the Infinity Gauntlet. And, Vision and Cap have a little discussion about this, and Cap's like, look, we don't leave anybody behind. We can't do this. And Vision's like, look, you were willing to put yourself out there. And it's again, a nice little conversation between characters here. And that really does come into play later on in this film. But Of course, Wanda wants nothing to do with this. She loves Vision. She doesn't want to see anything happen to him, obviously. So, again, Banner has this idea to remove the Soul Stone from the Vision because his point is, hey, even if we can get this thing out of his head, there's still a lot of Vision left in there. So maybe this is a possibility. The problem is he knows he can't do it alone. So Steve speaks up and says he knows someone. And, brother, you know where this is taking us. The next scene in this film. Where are we heading next?
Wakanda, off the heels of his own movie, which, did, phenomenal, off the charts. So there's another reason why this movie was so anticipated. And, when Infinity War came out, it even boosted the ticket sales of Black Panther. It stayed in and made a little more money, because of Infinity War. That was great.
I'd forgotten about that, honestly, until you mentioned it. The fact that Black Panther was still in theaters when Infinity War came out. So, yeah, man, that's pretty cool. Again, I'd actually forgotten all about that. Black Panther, if I can get off topic for just a sec, man, Black Panther, the film, it means a lot to so many people. It means a lot to the African-American community, and I completely understand why. And I totally get it. But that film has always meant a lot to me personally. And you and I have discussed this before, but, the themes of this movie about family, about specifically between the relationship between father and son. And that always strikes a chord with me, as it does with a lot of other people out there. But there's just this whole idea of embracing manhood, what it's like to grow up in your father's shadow, for better or for worse, and loving your father and wanting to be like him, and then realizing your father's only human, and there's so many different things at play in here. And again, family is a big deal in that movie. And I don't know, I just connect to this film so much. And I love Infinity War. I love Endgame. I love so much of the MCU. I really do. But man, if you had to nail me down right now and ask me point blank, what is your favorite MCU film of all time? And I got to say Black Panther for me, hands down. It's just how I feel, man.
Well, I can't argue with that. I loved it too. I wouldn't say it's my favorite. My favorite was probably Endgame, the last one before Spider-Man: Far From Home. But of course,
yes.
Endgame's got to be my favorite, in my opinion.
Much respect to that, man. I honestly, I'm sure I've been overheard more than one time talking about how much I love Infinity War and how much I love Endgame, about how either one or maybe both at the same time are my favorite Marvel films. So I totally get it. It's hard for me to just stick to one, but again, if I have to, Black Panther is it for me. But no, I get what you're saying. So we see T'Challa, the king of Wakanda, obviously, aka the Black Panther, and he's talking to Okoye, and they're talking about, the fight that's coming. And they encounter Sebastian Stan, a.k.a. Bucky, the Winter Soldier. And there he is, the White Wolf, as they're calling him on Wakanda. So they encounter him, and they present him the new vibranium arm. And, dude, so cool. It looks so awesome. And he's been there the whole time, since Civil War. And once again, baby, stuff's about to get real.
How pumped is the audience at that point when he says, "Where's the fight?" So it's on its way. Like, oh man, here we go.
Oh yeah, man! I love that. Such good dialogue there, and just for something so simple. But yeah, you just assume at that point that Steve's already contacted them, and they know that as I said, the fight's coming. Like you said, it's on the way. So at this point, we go back to the ship, Ebony Maw's ship, and it's here that he has Doctor Strange sort of suspended in midair, and he's got a barrage of needles sort of poking at him. He's threatening basically torture to get the stone from Doc Strange, and it's actually being protected by the Eye of Agamotto, and he cannot break it due to an enchantment. And Ma is pushing as hard as he can to get this thing from Doctor Strange. We see Tony Stark above, sort of on the next level of the ship, and that's when he realizes that Peter has stowed away aboard this craft. He's upset. He's frustrated. He doesn't want Peter to get in trouble. As we said before in part one, Stark is his father figure, and he's worried for Peter's safety. And that is a reoccurring thing that will play out during this movie and Endgame as well. He feels responsibility toward Peter for obvious reasons. And as we said, he doesn't want anything bad to happen to him. So finally, Peter looks at him, interrupts him, and he says, look, you can't be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man if there's no neighborhood. Stark realizes he's not going to let this go, and he's looking to, they're both looking down at the scene before them, and he finally says, fine, what would you do? And that's when Peter just stops and says, oh, I got an idea. Have you ever seen that really old movie Alien? Or Aliens? And I'm like, great. We're the old guys in the theater, right? And I'm just thinking, great, he's going to make me feel even older now. So, God, man, it's funny. Like, it's such good stuff, but like Peter with the pop culture references, and Stark even says that later on in one of these scenes. I mean, God, as I said, man, just making me feel older all the time.
Yeah, but love the references to characters from other parts of pop culture, and leave it up to Peter to come up with a plan taken from a quote-unquote old movie. Just another genius part of writing there.
Oh, no question about it. So it's at this point that Stark approaches Maul. Maul knows he's there, dude. Just as he turns around, he knows he's there. He senses his presence. And this guy is intelligent and crazy powerful. And sometimes I wonder, during the course of this film, if he couldn't have just done all this without Thanos in the mix. I don't know. This guy is beyond impossible to deal with. You know what I mean? He's very capable, folks, in case you hadn't figured it out. But he's unable to stop what happens next because he, quickly reminds Tony he's no match for him and everything, which is all true, evidently. And Stark replies with, yeah, but the kids see more movies, okay? So with that, he blasts a hole in the side of the ship. Ebony Maw is sucked out into deep space. Tony seals up the ship. And at this point, Ebony Maw is a crispy critter, folks. He's frozen solid in the vacuum of space. It's all over for him. And then we get another bit of lighthearted comedy as Peter introduces himself. And Peter says, I'm Peter Parker. And Doc says, I'm Doctor Strange. Peter's like, oh, we're using made-up names. Okay, well, in that case, I'm Spider-Man. So, again, another great bit of comedy here in this scene. And what more can you say about it, man? It's just pitch perfect here.
Once again, the fanboy side of him is coming out. He's like, okay, well, I'm part of the team now. Let's if we're gonna, use our code names here, I'm Spider-Man. And I love the fact that Tony has, made the decision, like, let's take the fight to Thanos on his own home planet. He said he wouldn't be expecting that. Another great move on Tony's part. And to me, it's something part of Tony's character. It fits just right because that's something that he would do. He wants to take the fight to that other guy, that other creature, whoever it is. And on his home planet, on his own home planet too, feels like he's got the home field advantage. But Tony, doesn't care. He's ready to end this. He's had enough.
Yeah, and if you really think about it, what else could they have done at this point? I mean, let's say that they had just took Strange up on his idea, and let's just take the stone back to Earth. Let's go right now. They turn the thing around, go back to Earth. Somehow they get back to Earth. Okay, but what happens then? Thanos is going to show up anyway, and let's say when he shows up, he's ticked off, so he wipes out a country while he's there just for the fun of it, just for kicks and giggles. I mean, in the end, the snap happened anyway, but, short-term thinking could have been, well, if he follows us back right now, how do we even defend ourselves, and what if he takes out a lot of innocent people? So I don't know if there was really like another option here to do that. So then we get into something that, again, will play itself out later. We have a lot of those moments in this film, folks, if you haven't figured that out by now. But Strange makes it known to Stark that, look, we'll do this. I'll go along with you, Stark, on this plan. But just be advised that if it comes down to choosing between you or the kid or the stone, I'll choose the stone. I will not hesitate to let either one of you die, either or both. So, I can't say that came out of nowhere, but it was kind of shocking coming from Doctor Strange, who is, he's a hero, honestly, but at the same time, he does have to be mindful and remember that if Thanos gets his hand on this thing, then he's just one step closer to destroying the universe. So, yeah, that's a big moment, especially for, again, how this plays out in the future. And then we get a very important moment for Tom Holland's run as Spider-Man in the MCU. when Tony Stark sort of knights him as being an Avenger. And Peter gets a sign of a grin for like a half second, and then he just turns his head and focuses, and he's completely in the moment, and the smile is gone, and he realizes the gravity of the situation.
Oh yeah, love the symbolic knighting as an Avenger, with the the hands on the shoulder, that was great.
Yeah, and as we said, Peter can't really enjoy it, even though this is something he's always wanted, because he knows that in that very moment, I mean, this is no fun and games. This is not Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man time. This is, this is life or death, life and death. And as I said, he's completely focused. From this point, we see Thanos' fleet. He has Gamora. She's defiant, obviously. He reveals that he has her sister Nebula restrained and is torturing her. He knows that Gamora has information on the Soul Stone, and after much poking and prodding and threatening to basically rip Nebula apart, Gamora admits to Thanos that the Soul Stone, is on Vormir. From here we go and we see Thor, Groot, and Rocket. They're on their way to Nidavellir. Thor tells Rocket his story. His entire family is dead, but he's focused on taking Thanos out. He tells Rocket that Thanos is just the latest in a long line of bastards that wants to kill him. Rocket gives him an eye. Thor pops it into his head, and we now have a two-eyed god of thunder. So, for the first time in this film, Chris Hemsworth gets a second eye. And so now he's pretty all over again. This kind of reminds me of something, and makes me think of something, I should say. And again, this is Tom overthinking stuff. I totally get it. But, as we've seen during the course of the MCU, we've seen a lot of these actors without the mask. All right. And we see it all the time on the posters, through the course of the entire movie from start to finish. We may have seen Tony Stark as Tony Stark a lot more than we ever seen him as Iron Man. And I'm okay with that to a certain extent because I get it. They're paying these guys just a ton of money. And so you don't want to cover up their faces for too long. And plus, there's only so much that a character can do with the mask on. You can only convey certain emotions and so many emotions without facial expression. So while the fanboy in me hates this and hates that they're constantly without their masks because I'm a comic book guy, right? I kind of get it at the same time.
Yeah, and I think it's just another way to relate to the common, everyday, ordinary person, just to see their face, know that there's a human being inside that suit of armor, or there's a human being inside the Cap suit. It's just another way to, relate to the people.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, man. I can't argue that point. So our heroes finally arrive on Nidavellir, and it's barren. The outpost is barren. They know something's up. The place has been trashed. And you know what that means. Thanos has probably been there. This time the whole place isn't on fire, as we've seen several times during the course of this film. But this is where we meet Eitri, who is a dwarf, who happens to be like 10 stories tall or something. Played by the great Peter Dinklage, by the way. And he just towers over Thor. And, the contrast between him and the God of Thunder is just immense. But man, Dinklage is he's just perfect in this role, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he's the biggest dwarf I've ever seen, but it's almost, I don't know, it's funny, another funny scene, because you think dwarf, you think this really small person, but he's not. Maybe he's a dwarf to some other beings, celestials or something, but Thor's looking up to him,
Oh yeah, man, for sure. Like the God of Thunder is not very godlike in this particular scene, no doubt about it. So this is where we get the explanation from Eitri about what happened. Thor wants to know what's the deal? Why is the place trash and what's happened to everyone there? No one's there, by the way, besides Eitri. He tells Thor, he says, look, you were supposed to protect us. The Asgardians were supposed to protect us. Thanos came in. He wanted Eitri to manufacture a device capable of harnessing the power of the stones. This, of course, becomes the Infinity Gauntlet. They saw the mold there and everything. And the backstory's terrible. Thanos persuaded him to do it in exchange for sparing everyone's life. Well, as soon as Eitri created the gauntlet for Thanos to use, Thanos killed everyone anyway, disabled the station, and took Eitri's hands. So Eitri could not help anyone else, let alone help himself. And it's just a terrible situation this guy finds himself in. but he makes peace with Thor, and he agrees to help Thor to create a new weapon, the God-killing kind. From here, we see Nebula. She escapes captivity, and she asks the remaining Guardians to meet her at Thanos' destroyed homeworld, Titan. This is a big deal, folks. This is a big moment in the movie. For the first time, really, we get to see Thanos' home planet, where he came from. And the wreckage, everything's destroyed. You don't really get the story right off the bat about what happens. Thanos tells you later. But you don't really know what went on here. I mean, it's obvious that it's in bad shape. I mean, the gravity is off. And we see even Mantis is like jumping up and down in place. And it's just, I don't know, again, Armageddon has come to this planet.
Oh, yeah. The planet looks very strange, desolate, eerie. It's silent. There's nothing going on. And, it's just depraved. I mean, here you have heroes from Earth there, and they're like, it's just so out of place. And it's like, maybe on Mars or something, a planet that's dead, and, it's been dead for a while. And then this is where they hook up with the Guardians of the Galaxy for the first time. And another great scene. You've anticipated this for a while, and here it comes to fruition. Neither set of teams can figure out, who the other is. There is totally confusing. They think that the other team is working with Thanos. That in itself was crazy. They're threatening to kill each other right up from the get-go. But it's just weird.
And for those of you who aren't necessarily comic book fans, but just like fans of the movies, we as fanboys are very accustomed to this, because anytime there's like a crossover between heroes in any comic that maybe haven't met before, maybe they haven't even heard of each other, maybe they have or haven't, doesn't really matter. The first time they cross paths, they fight. That's kind of how it happens. And then by the end of that issue, the end of that book or whatever, or that end of that series, they're on the same page. They understand what happened, what the trouble was. Now everybody's okay. Everybody's cool with each other. But, so when this happens, none of us were really surprised by it at all. But yeah, man, they come to blows fairly quickly. And, again, this is, like we said before, man, this is a big scene. I mean, Titan's a big deal because you get Thanos' backstory and you come to realize what exactly drove him to do what he does during the course of these movies, during his entire run in the MCU. Why is he so bent on destruction? And then you find out here. I mean, it becomes very apparent very soon, actually, in this scene. So yes, you have Stark, you have Strange, you have Peter, and then you have, yes, the Guardians. They're there, Quill, Drax, and Mantis. And yes, it's a Mexican standoff moment there for sure, because each side thinks that they're working for Thanos, the other side thinks it too, and then they finally realize, okay, we're kind of all on the same side here, we're all on the same page. We're back now with Thor. Eitri reveals the Stormbreaker mold, but the rings have to be fired back up to harness the energy of a dying star. Back on Titan, Stark and crew try to come up with a plan. Mantis delivers one of the funniest lines in this film. It's very subdued. It's very understated. I may have laughed harder than anyone in the theater when this happened, because it still gets me every time. Because, Drax is kind of there and he's like not really paying attention or whatnot. And Stark addresses this. And then looks at Mantis and says, well, what do you do? And Mantis says, we kick names and take ass. And dude, so good. Just so perfect. And Batista, so great in this scene, because he just looks at Stark very subtle with his hands on his belt and says, that's right. And just very subtly says it. Doesn't yell, doesn't scream, doesn't brag. Just looks at him and says, that's right. And dude, to this day, that's one of the lines of this movie that absolutely kills me every time I hear it.
Tony rolls his eyes, and Tony, goes in and says, like, okay, here's the plan, here's what we're going to do. And he starts going into it, and Drax is yawning, and Tony looks over and says, he shouts, are you yawning? He said he can't believe it.
It's like, am I boring you? Oh, man, it's awesome. I love that so much. It's such great stuff. So we're moving on through this scene, folks. And Mantis points out that Doctor Strange is sort of floating midair behind them as all this is happening. And she's like, does your friend often do this? Is he okay, basically? And he's sitting cross-legged, kind of floating there like in a meditation, but his head is like twitching and moving around like 100 miles an hour. And they approach him and they finally break him out of this trance, I guess you could say. And that's when Strange tells them that he was just looking, using the time stone to view 14,605 possible futures, but seeing only one in which Thanos loses. The group forms a plan to subdue Thanos and remove the Infinity Gauntlet, which he uses to house the stones. Now, folks, this is important. This is going to play not only in this film, but very much in the next film, an Endgame, that we are going to cover in a future episode for sure. And you got to remember this because, again, this is a very important part. And there's so much of this movie that you're going to be able to carry over to Endgame. And if you've seen this movie 100 times or something like we have, then you'll still be able to take these little nuggets with you to the next film if you've forgotten them, or whatever. But man, this really does carry over. And like I said, man, this means a lot heading into the final chapter of, I guess you could say, the final chapter of the Avengers saga, especially the Infinity Saga, no doubt about it. Next up, we're off to Vormir, and this is one of the most emotional scenes in the entire film. For sure. This is the moment where Thanos acquires the fourth stone. This is the Soul Stone. He knew that Gamora was hiding it from him, and she had to admit the location, of course, to him in order to save her sister, and now here we are. But the gem is actually being guarded by someone we didn't expect. This is an apparition, a ghost of a character that we know in the MCU as Johann Schmidt, the one and only Red Skull, Captain America's arch enemy from, of course, Captain America, the First Avenger. Dude, talk to me about what were you thinking when you first saw Red Skull in this scene, man? Was this a shocker or what?
Oh man, that was a creepy scene, but it was great to see the Red Skull. But you're like, what's happened to him? What did the Tesseract do to him when it sucked him up into space? And it transported him here, and what's happened to him since then? But he's become the guardian of that stone, so to speak. And it's his voice is creepy. It always was. But correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the character from The Walking Dead, Aaron, wasn't he the voiceover for the Red Skull in that film?
Yeah, I think you're right. Hugo Weaving, who originally portrayed the Red Skull, supposedly had no interest in coming back. He wasn't crazy about the makeup. I don't know if he had an issue with the role itself. I don't know why he would. I mean, he did a fantastic job, and he was very believable, and he was one of the best villains the MCU has ever seen, I believe. And he was portraying an iconic character. I don't know what more you could ask for, but yeah, no, he was not involved. But honestly, they didn't miss a beat with the Red Skull. I thought the voice was great, and it fit, it suited the character, and I didn't miss Weaving at all on this.
Yeah, and another point I want to make: he knows who Thanos and Gamora are. It's like, how does he know who they are? He's never met them before. I mean, this guy is almost like a god, almost.
Yes, absolutely. And Thanos even questions if the Skull knows him or how he knows them. And the Skull reveals he is the keeper of the Soul Stone and that apparently he was zapped there and is cursed to remain there. This, of course, happened after the events in Captain America First Avenger. And his curse is to guide others to a treasure he cannot possess, which is crazy heavy. But that's the hand he's dealt. And let's be honest, folks. This guy was a Nazi, okay? So don't anybody go feeling bad for Red Skull, man. He did a lot of heinous stuff in the First Avenger and a lot of heinous stuff that was referenced throughout the course of that film. So yeah, bad guys get what they deserve in the MCU, baby. That's what I'm saying. So Skull warns Thanos that the Soul Stone comes with a terrible price. The Red Skull tells him that to ensure whoever possesses it understands its power, there must be a great sacrifice. Someone Thanos loves has to die, a soul for a soul. Gamora laughs because Thanos doesn't love anyone or anything. But Thanos is crying. Gamora believes it's for himself because, he's come all this way and all his best laid plans have been torn asunder. But that's not exactly it, as the Red Skull tells Gamora that the tears are not for him. She realizes what's up. She tries to pull away from him. He's unrelenting. He says, "I'm sorry, little one." He pitches her off the side of the cliff, murders her in cold blood. The next time we see him, he sits up in water with the Soul Stone in his hand. So he's accomplished his mission. The fourth stone is in his possession. I got to tell you, man, we knew going into this there was probably going to be some fatalities during the course of this film. Those were the rumors. That's what we'd been hearing and reading for a while. I think we all pretty much said Hawkeye. Hawkeye's not going to make it to space. You know what I mean? What's he going to do against Thanos? Shoot an arrow? I mean, you know. But it turns out it's Gamora. I mean, I didn't see this coming, man. Did you see this coming?
No, I didn't. It was a total surprise. And but I mean, you know, she was there for a reason. She just didn't know, and neither did Thanos. Neither one of them knew what to expect. But she just happened to be there, and just happened to be the one being that he loved the most. And you know, I think in the comic, Thanos is in love with death, and he's always trying to please death. So I mean, you know, just to fulfill his agenda, his mission, he's going to do anything. You know, I mean, even if it costs, you know, the most precious life he has, to get that stone to fulfill his mission, he's going to do it. And it's like, wow, you know, it's really powerful moment. She's trying her best to get away from him, but you know, he's slowly, you know, dragging her to the edge of the cliff, and you know what's next. I mean, it's heartbreaking. It really is.
Absolutely. And this was the same character, folks, that had earlier in the film asked Peter to kill her if Thanos got his hands on her. But when faced with her mortality, she was scared for her life, as anyone would be. And you know, we're talking about aliens here. You know, we keep using the words comic characters and whatnot, heroes and villains, but she's an alien. But she's very human in this scene. And man, your heart went out to her. And it's just one of it's just one of the saddest moments in this film. And one of the saddest moments in the entire MCU, for my money. I mean, yes, she came back in Endgame, spoiler alert, but, or, you know, a past version of herself did, but it's not the same. I mean, it's obvious that, I mean, she dies here. I mean, it's a really big deal. So from here, we are back to Wakanda. Steve Rogers reunites with Bucky Barnes before Thanos' army invades. And this is fun because the guys arrive. Banner's there, of course, Steve Rogers, and Banner's talking to Rhodes, and Banner says, "Well, do we bow?" And Rhodes says, "Well, yeah, he's a king. Of course you bow." So they get up there, and he goes to bow. T'Challa's like, "No, we don't do that," which is a very cool moment. So yeah, nice touch there. And you know, I gotta say, man, every time we see Wakanda on the screen, I just want to go. Do you know what I mean? Like it. Not only is there such an incredible mix of technology and Earth, so like you've got nature, but you've also got, I mean, high-tech stuff that doesn't exist in our real world, right? Man, it's so cool to look at, and the sun and, you know, the jungle and the green and the trees, and I mean, man, it's just, you know, it's just inviting. It's just, every time I see Wakanda, I'm just like, dude, I have to go there. Man, it's just so cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost what you would think Eden, you know, the Garden of Eden was like. You know, it's just beautiful. Yeah, why wouldn't you want to live there?
Absolutely, man. Sign me up. I'm on the next plane out. That's what I'm saying. So things really start cooking here. Thanos' army is invading. They are arriving. They are forming on the outer defenses of the shield that is surrounding Wakanda. And big things are happening here, man. It's starting to get serious. The Avengers alongside T'Challa and Wakandan forces are trying to mount a defense. Shuri is beginning to work here on the Mind Stone, or extracting the Mind Stone from Vision. And then T'Challa is telling them fortify our defenses. And then he gives the great line, "Get this man a shield." Talk about it, dude.
Oh, man. I mean, another classic line. You know, how could you forget that? And let me just say that this battle scene was epic. And it reminded me a lot of, you know, the battle scene in Black Panther, of course. Of course, it's Wakanda. So, but, you know, the stakes are higher this time. It's not just Wakanda. It's the entire planet. They know that they don't protect this stone or destroy it somehow without destroying Vision, so it could be game over. So yeah, the stakes are really high here.
Yes, very high indeed. Man, if I can fanboy here for a second, I gotta say, man, Black Panther continues to be one of my favorite characters in the MCU. Maybe my favorite character in the MCU. Dude, I just love this guy so much. And I think what I like best about him, he's just a good person. He's a good man. And we got a lot of that in the MCU. Obviously, it is a comic book universe, folks. This is not like Frank Miller's Sin City, where there's, a lot of shades of gray, and there's some people are kind of bad guys behind closed doors. It's nothing like that here. And very few exceptions in the MCU, honestly, when it comes to that. But, he's just a good guy. And you can draw a lot of direct comparisons side by side between him and Captain America, honestly. He and Steve Rogers, they're about honor, respect. They're very noble and very selfless. There's nothing about T'Challa I don't like, and the same could be said for Steve Rogers for me, dude. Just absolutely.
Yes, and of course they have them fighting side by side, which is just literally awesome. One of the most awesome things ever. And like you said, two good men fighting side by side to protect the planet, not only Wakanda but the planet. If you want somebody on your side, Black Panther, T'Challa is it.
For sure. And he's ready to go here. He's ready. Steve's ready. We know Winter Soldier is here also. As we said earlier, the Falcon's there. Man, this thing is about to go down, and we're about to see. It's like you said, one of the biggest fight scenes ever. And especially when it comes to like the large field, you talk about Braveheart and things like that. But man, I don't think you can hold a candle. That can't even hold a candle to Infinity War in terms of the scope of this thing. It's just massive. I just love everything about this. So from here, we're back to Nidavellir. Thor is fighting to open the rings to harness the star. He puts himself in the direct path of the star's energy. Man, as a side note here, we got to talk for a second about the evolution of Thor in these movies. The first time we saw Thor, he was young, cocky, arrogant, full of himself, all powerful, like had never lost a battle, supremely confident in his ability, supremely confident in his powers, and with using Mjolnir, just like I said, just insanely confident. And look where he is now. But he no longer puts himself first. He no longer lets his confidence do his talking for him. He's selfless. He's the king now. He's the king of Asgard. And he's all about the team now. He's all about his people. And especially here in this moment where he's like, look, we have to do this. I don't have a choice. And he knows this could kill him. If this kills him, then someone else is going to have to try to wield Stormbreaker. And he's fully aware of that. But he knows this has to be done. What a great moment for this character. And again, this character who in the very beginning was one person, and then now fast forward to Infinity War, he's a different person, a different man. What an evolution we've seen here.
Yeah, again, you have another question of a character who's going to put his life on the line because, it's either do or die here. This has to be done or they don't have a chance. You've got to make this weapon. He's going to do whatever it takes, which was Endgame, whatever it takes. Thor's already started, the wheels in motion on that. And, he's going to sacrifice himself if need be. But I think, part of himself believes, I can do this. I'm the God of Thunder. I believe I can do this.
Absolutely, full of confidence. As we said before, Thor still has his swagger. He still has that belief in himself. He's been through this character's been through a lot in his time. He's overcome a lot of obstacles on his path, on his journey to becoming the hero that we know at this point in the MCU. So yes, again, he's determined. He's convinced he can do this, and he's going to go for broke. We go back to Wakanda here, and now Wakanda's defenses are in full force. The fight is on. T'Challa and Wakanda's forces, all of the tribes are standing together, including the gorilla tribe. We see M'Baku, portrayed by the great Winston Duke. I love this character, Greg. I love this guy. talk about a dude that will have your back to the end. We saw these two guys, and they were going to war in Black Panther, first Black Panther, and by the end of that movie, they were allies, and now they are. I mean, they're flat out standing with each other. And in fact, T'Challa tells him, "Thank you for standing with us," and Baku replies with, "Of course, brother." Tom Clark's 6M podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark's 6M podcast sent you. It's some great moments here, man, as T'Challa is shouting "E Bombay," which apparently means hold fast. So they are all chanting in unison. The enemy is coming. They're breaking through the barrier. And man, again, dude, we have said multiple times about this particular scene. It's epic. It's grand in scale. Man, crazy how just the cinematic scope of this is insane. What an incredible scene this really is.
Yeah, I mean, the chant, that should pump anybody up right there. I mean, if I was out there on the battlefield, man, that would pump me up, get me ready for anything.
Yes, dude, my God, man, just the motivator that T'Challa is. And like you said, that catchphrase, that chant that they're doing, man, it just gets you pumped up, makes you want to get up out of your seat and just, I mean, dude, I'll go fight with them. Put a spear in my hand. I don't know if I can do anything with it, but man, I'll give it a try. You know what I mean? We talk about rallying the troops for sure. This thing is huge, and I tell you, folks, we can't put over this scene enough to you. If you've not seen this film, my God, how are you walking around right now? Number one. But number two, man, do yourself a favor. Watch this film. You got to watch it, if nothing else, for all the grandeur that is Infinity War. This scene alone sells the movie for me, man. And, T'Challa has opened the defenses. They've opened the shield, and here comes the endless hordes of aliens. And, man, these creatures are like cockroaches, man. You turn a light on in a dark room and they just scatter. They're just everywhere. Sacrifice themselves. Dude, this is insane. I mean, it's one of the... I mean, when you're watching this, man, it's like, how in the world... I don't care how much firepower the Avengers have at this point, how many people there are. These are humans that feel pain and can be killed. These things are getting killed left and right, and they don't even hesitate. None of the creatures around them are even stopping. Oh man, we're getting killed. Maybe we should ease up. They just keep coming. God, man, what a sight this is.
They're endless. I mean, it's like millions and millions of these creatures. They're out for blood. They're going to kill, and again, they're killing themselves trying to get through the force field. That's another thing. I mean, that's how badly they want to kill. They're just wanting to maim and destroy.
Oh, yeah, man. They're out for blood. Totally out for blood. We've never seen the Avengers back down, though, man. Never. And they've been knocked back on their heels a few times. But we've never seen them back down in a fight. And they're definitely not doing that here. They are full force. They're charging. They're heading toward trouble. They're running toward the enemy here. And, dude, I love this scene for so many reasons. I'm gushing like crazy over it, and I can't help it. But one of the coolest things about it is Black Panther is in the front, because of course he is, because T'Challa has the power of the Black Panther. And, dude, you see from like 5 or 6 people behind, the camera stays in one spot as they're running, and you see who else but Steve Rogers blowing past everyone else to get all the way up with T'Challa in front of the pack, because it's Steve Rogers, man. Like, dude, the heck with Clark Kent, man. Steve Rogers is my Superman. That's how I feel. Just unreal. I mean, him and T'Challa leading the charge. I mean, this is how it should be, especially in this film.
So, two warriors going into battle, and neither one, hesitating for a second. They know what they have to do. They know what they need to do, and they're going to get the job done no matter what.
Yes, sir. All business, man. They're all business, and they know the mission ahead of them. They know what must be done. They know what they have to do. They're going to go do it. I mean, against all odds, for sure, against all odds, man. They just don't know the meaning of the word quit. No one in this scene does at all. I mean, they're just, like we said, man, just pressing forward. So we're back with Thor again, and Thor has done it. He has harnessed the power of the dying star. Stormbreaker is created, but in the process, it nearly kills him. And Eitri says, well, the only thing that could save him, because the boy's dying, right? So the only thing that could save him is possibly Stormbreaker. But there's no handle, right? They can't get the handle. So Groot, for a change, actually steps up. We actually see him do something heroic. And he puts the game down and he decides, I got to do this, I got to help. And he actually chops his own arm off. And it becomes the handle for Stormbreaker. Dude, what a nice touch this is. I didn't see this coming, but when it happened, it's such an odd thing, right? But man, the second that this scene took place, I'm like, God, this is perfect in so many ways. And again, dude, just a nice touch. It ties the Guardians and Thor together. And it's just another example of cooperation between these characters. There's nothing about this I don't love.
Yeah, I mean, a piece of Groot as the handle. So, it means something special. And Groot has sacrificed himself in the first Guardians film, for the sake of the entire team. So he's done this before. He's willing to make sacrifices, because Groot is a hero just like the rest of them.
Dude, once again with the great callback. You're killing me with the callbacks, man. Once again, totally on point here. Groot, absolutely the hero in the first Guardians. And again, like you said, he's doing the same thing here again. Well done on that one for sure. Back to the war that is Wakanda at this point, folks. Yes, it's chaos. Yes, it's the war to end all wars. It's insane. It's one word, all caps, epic. And suddenly, from out of nowhere, because it's looking bad for our heroes, the tide is going to turn, because guess who shows up? The God o' Thunder himself, Thor, with Groot in tow, as well as Rocket. And yes, it's time to bust some heads. And it's clobbering time, folks, because here he is. And my God, Stormbreaker is in full effect. And oh, God, man, this... if you're going to fanboy over anything, this is the scene to do it. I mean, I think every time I watch this part of the movie, I audibly make sound like I do through so much of this film. But this scene in particular, man, it's just freaking great.
Yeah, he just takes out a whole horde of these creatures, with his new axe. He comes down and he just obliterates them. And who hollers out, Banner? What does he say?
He says, "You guys are really screwed now."
That's it, yeah. Like, Buddy Thor's here, get ready. Another awesome part.
Yes, he comes straight down. He yells, "Bring me Thanos." He comes straight down with Stormbreaker and wipes out like 2,000 of them or something. I mean, this guy's ready to fight, man. He's been recharged in more ways than one. He's got his weapon, got his axe, ready to do some damage, right? And ready to kill Thanos. And speaking of Big Bad himself, we're back to Titan now, and Thanos has arrived. He is there in all his mad glory, and he's explaining to Doctor Strange, who greets him there, what happened to Titan. He explains about what happened. If only they had listened. He tried to explain to them that what his plan was, how to save the planet, and apparently Titan's demise was not at Thanos' hands. It was just a natural, I don't want to say naturally occurring thing, but the planet, they just kind of destroyed it themselves. His plan was, let's wipe out half the population, and those of us still here will rebuild, and the planet's resources will still be available, and all that other stuff he was saying for Earth and all these other planets in the universe. His theory of getting all this done, his means of getting it done, dude, you can't say that the ends justify the means with this guy, can you?
No, you're right. But again, there's, in his mind, Thanos is doing what needs to be done. He looks at himself as a savior, and he's trying to save the universe in his mind. So that's the whole point of what he's doing, the big undertaking, the gauntlet, and the snap. He's trying to save the universe in his mind.
Yes, and as always, Marvel delivers a compelling villain who doesn't believe he's a villain. And at the end of the day, you can almost relate to him, I guess, in a weird way. And even though you can't justify his plan and how he goes about it, you can kind of see where he's coming from to a certain extent. Thanos is an extreme example of this, obviously. But this is Marvel's thing, man. It's the heroes are clear-cut heroes, and the villains are shades of gray. A lot of shades of gray with the villains. And that's just how they roll. And it's worked for them so far. And it definitely worked with Thanos. So, yes, the fight is on now. And it's going down big time. Before it all kicks in, Thanos delivered the line about finally resting to watch the sunrise on a grateful universe. Which, to me sounds like the line from a madman. I'm sorry. Despite what his motivations are, that sounds like some insanity talking. Some crazy narcissistic, vengeful, like a power trip happening with this guy. Stark is going to town. This dude drops a massive chunk on him, but he's not going to stay down for long. He gets up. He even makes the comment to him. He mentions Stark by name, and Tony says, "You know me?" And Thanos goes, "I do." And so of course he knows him. He's been in his head for 6 years. It's what Tony said earlier, right? So, yeah, man, it's like I said, it's getting serious here. Spider-Man, Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy in full effect, doing their thing against the worst villain of all time. Finally, we see Mantis, the only one that could get into this guy's head and hold him still for any period of time, finally does it. She subdues Thanos long enough for our heroes to get the drop on him. They're trying to pull the glove off. It's Peter and Tony trying to get the glove pulled off of Thanos. And they're close, man. They're real close. But then circumstances unfold, they unravel, and the story comes out that, yes, Thanos sacrificed Gamora on Vormir to get the Soul Stone. Peter does one of the most boneheaded things of all time in any MCU film or any film period. When they're this close to slaying the giant, what does he do? But he trips and falls. You know what I'm saying? Like he does the dumbest thing ever. And he just decides, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and start punching Thanos in the face because, revenge and stuff. And he almost blows the entire movie at this point. Like one of the most, again, a boneheaded move. And I love Peter's character. The character Peter Quill, I love this guy. But dude, flat out asinine and just the dumbest move ever, in my opinion.
In defense of the character, he's forgotten everything else. All he thinks about is Gamora. She's gone, and everything else is he's oblivious of everything else. He almost like he's got amnesia, and he just wants to do physical harm to Thanos, and that's it. And they almost had the gauntlet off at that point. And yeah, it's the most pivotal point of the film. Because, it enables Thanos to regain his focus and his senses and get back on track.
Blind rage, man. Blind rage. There's no other way to describe it. And as a result of that, yes, as you said, Thanos has regained his senses. He's back. The gauntlet's firmly on his hand now, and he's pissed. He pulls a moon down from orbit. From around, just say that again, folks. He pulls a moon from out of space and rains down debris and rocks and just, could have destroyed the whole planet by doing this, right? But he's just aiming for the Avengers and just about kills every one of them. So at this point, it's looking bad. Like it reminds me of this scene from Independence Day when they fired the nukes at the mothership and it didn't destroy the ship. That's kind of the best weapon we've ever had ever. Wow, we're so screwed. That's kind of like my same thought here. It's like, dude, this was the closest they came to bring this guy down, and now it's over. Like, how are they going to regroup after this? And like I said, man, it doesn't look good. And even, we're back to Wakanda, and, it's all these cool moments are happening. Shuri is working to get the Soul Stone out of Vision's head while the fight continues. And like I said, man, we got some cool moments here. We've got Cap and we've got Groot meeting each other for the first time, which should have been silly and dumb and weird, and it just totally wasn't. Because it's Chris Evans and it's Captain America, it's Steve Rogers, and he makes everything cool. And it's just the way he did it, where Groot just looks at him and says, "I am Groot." And he just touches his own chest and says, "I am Steve Rogers." Like, he wasn't even swayed by the fact that here's a talking tree, right? But again, man, what a cool moment this is.
Oh yeah, in the midst of all that chaos, the battle going on, you have a real cleverly done, funny moment. You know, the first time Cap and Groot meet, it's again a testament to the writers, the directors, producers. They magic.
Absolutely, man, absolutely. So Shuri's working. It's clear that the tide is turning against the Avengers. The enemy has infiltrated. There's just too many of them. Even, Thor with Stormbreaker can't get it done, man. He's not enough to do this by himself. He's causing a lot of damage. The Avengers together, the Wakandans together, the tribes, and everyone working in unison for one common goal. They're making great effort, but there's just too much of the enemy, man. It's just too much to overcome. We see Wanda. She has to go down to the fight. She helps Okoye and Black Widow against Proxima Midnight. Big time Marvel women movie moment right here. Freaking awesome. Proxima Midnight. She's Deep Six, baby. She's out of here. They take her out. So yes, very cool moment. It's a great moment for the battlefield. But however, it's one down and a whole bunch to go. At this point, we get Thanos' minions are attacking Shuri, trying to take the Vision, but he fights back. So Vision is up off the table. He is going to have to join the fray as well. So now we know the Soul Stone's not coming out of his head, at least not in Shuri's hands. Right? So at this point, the things have turned. Things are not looking good right now. I mean, it looks like that the end is near. And we know the climax is coming of the film. We know that at the time we saw it for the first time. I got to be honest with you, man. I thought, well, I don't know what more's left. Like, this is, every time they gain some ground, they lose some ground. So yeah, this thing is not looking good for the Avengers at this point.
Yeah, it just didn't seem to be going well for the Avengers. Here you have Thanos. He's fought off Tony and Strange and Spider-Man and the Guardians of the Galaxy, and they had their shot and they blew it, and he disappears, because he has the Infinity Gauntlet, he's got 5 of the stones. He just needs one more to complete the collection. And, he just transports himself to Earth, and they're left there, in disillusionment. They don't know what's going on. Where did he go? I mean, and all of a sudden, and suddenly, he appears on Earth, and, the music right there is perfect for that part. It's just, you can feel that this is going to a bad place. This is not good for the good guys. Thanos, you just have that feeling that he's going to prevail. I mean, he's made it this far, and nothing's going to stop him.
He's a man on a mission, no doubt about it. And dude, as you just said, he's got the 5th stone. He got it back on Titan, and it was, like you said, man, the fight broke down. It wasn't looking good on Titan at all. It did not end well. And after the futile attempt to get the gauntlet off, it just didn't come through. It just didn't happen. And things come down between Stark and Thanos, as we know that Thanos takes a blade from Tony's armor and actually stabs him with it. Stark is clearly dying. Thanos wanted the stone. That's what he was after. And, Doctor Strange had it in the Eye of Agamotto, and he wasn't giving it up. In fact, Thanos thought he got his hands on it at one point. It was actually just a fake. So Stark's dying, as we said. The end is near. And, for months we've been hearing about, hey, there might be some fatalities in this movie. And honestly, I thought this was it for Stark. I thought it was over. I thought Tony was going to die in this scene. And I was emotionally not ready for it. I mean, it's just, you connect with these films, these characters on such a deep personal level. I'm in the theater watching this. I've lost my breath, man. And at the very end, right when it looks like it's over, Strange tells Thanos to stop. He promises the stone if Thanos spares Tony's life. I think there's an amount of respect here between Thanos and Stark, which is very odd to say. But I see it, man. And Thanos acquiesces. He agrees. And he takes the stone. And like you said, man, it's the fifth one. So he's out. And he's gone. And Stark looks at Strange and says, why did you do this? Why? And Strange says, we're in the end game now. I mean, that's the line right there, baby, for sure.
Remember, as they were approaching Titan, Strange said that, he would not hesitate to sacrifice Tony and Peter, to save the stone that he has. He has changed his mind suddenly, and it's got something to do with Tony. Remember, he goes and he's looking at all of the scenarios as to how this thing could turn out, and they only one, where they defeat Thanos. So, it's something to do with Tony. That's why he relinquishes his stone to Thanos. You got to have Tony is the key now.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we keep talking, Greg, in this movie about relationships. This movie is about the connections between the characters. That's what makes this movie so great. It's not just the CG. It's not just the action stuff and the shoot 'em up, duke it out, fight scenes. It's not just that stuff. It's the connections between the characters. And here you have Strange and Stark, who hate each other's guts. And now Strange makes the ultimate sacrifice for him, and he knew he was going to die. He knew it was going to happen, right? But he did it anyway, because he realized Stark, like you said, Stark is the key to all of this. So we're back on Earth now, and Midian, Obsidian, and Glaive are all dead. Their army is routed, and things are looking better than they were before. But Shuri is unable to complete the extraction. And honestly, it doesn't matter. None of that stuff matters. The fighting, the sacrifices, the deaths, they don't really mean much right now because Thanos is here. Enter the villain. He has arrived. Major moment in the film. It's as if the wind is sucked out of you when this happens because you're like, oh God, there he is. And he comes face to face with Cap and crew, who, by the way, goes straight at him like he's just your everyday, ordinary villain. Except this guy has 5 Infinity Stones, right? Dude, Cap, no fear. No fear, this guy at all. No hesitation. No hesitation. Goes right at him. Cap never had fear as a 90-pound weakling, right? And he's definitely not got any here. I mean, this guy doesn't know the meaning of the word quit. Like I said, he just goes all out. I mean, it's just insanity here, man. Like I said, Cap just goes straight at him and doesn't care who he is, but just knows he has to do something. No fear. I mean, he knows that this guy has to be stopped. And I love the fact that Banner says that's him, So, I mean, we know who the enemy is now. We've got to try to stop him. And Cap, oh, man, when Thanos, has the stones, it still doesn't matter. Cap, doesn't give up. He's never going to give up. He's trying his best to stop Thanos, and that is a real powerful moment because Thanos is like he can't. For a second he's like he can't believe it. Where's this guy getting this from? Yes. Oh my God, dude! He catches his fist and he just holds it there. And Thanos gives him this look as if to say, I can't believe this is happening. He's shocked and we're shocked. And we watch this in the theater and it's one of the most spine-chilling moments of the entire, forget just this film, of the entire MCU. I mean, just unreal stuff. And he holds it there. And, he gives him this look and it's the same look that Thor gave Cap in Avengers Age of Ultron when Cap almost lifted the hammer. It was that look like, I can't believe this is real. This is really going to happen. And think about this, dude. The only reason that Thanos got him down was that he punched him with his other hand. He could not move forward with the gauntlet because Cap was holding it in place. I mean, who else but Captain America could have ripped the gauntlet barehanded off this guy without any help? I mean, given enough time, honestly, man, I think he could have done it.
another critical moment, and it's, we're almost at the end, and still Cap's fighting. He's, never going to give up. I mean, you got to kill him.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well said. I mean, the only way to stop Steve Rogers is to kill him. And even then, you better be sure he's not breathing, because if he gets back up, now he's going to be mad. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Determined, fierce, fearless. I mean, all the above, for sure. So this is the scene where Wanda is forced to blast the Mind Stone from Vision's head. She doesn't want to do it. This is something that she doesn't want any part of, but he's talked her into it. He's like, look, this is it. I know it's not you doing it. I know you don't want to, and I'm, but you have to. You don't have a choice at this point. And Scarlet Witch does it. So with one hand, she is blasting Vision's head, okay? And with the other hand, she is keeping Thanos at bay. Now, let's get this straight. Thanos has 5 stones. He's on his way to get to 6, and he's being held at bay by one hand of Scarlet Witch. Now, for anyone out there who's not maybe an actual loyal reading comic book fan and just watches the MCU, which that's more power to you, it's fine. I don't think you can appreciate just how strong the character is. I mean, Scarlet Witch in the actual Marvel universe, in terms of the books, is one of the most powerful characters of all time. And I'm sorry, man, but you talk about, what the chances that Steve might have had things been a little bit different. If Scarlet Witch had been able to go one-on-one with Thanos and all things being equal on an even playing field, I think she could have took the guy out. That's how strong she is. But yeah, man, talk about this moment. This moment where she is forced to, kill the man that she loves, essentially.
Yeah, another heartbreaking moment. She has to kill the man that she's fallen in love with. Yeah, it's just like it's really tearing her apart while she's tearing the Vision apart. And after that, she's crushed, she's crying, and kind of harken back to Age of Ultron when after Pietro's died, she killed Ultron, because of that, and she was so angry. Yeah, but she's really crushed at this point, and you think, well, at least she destroyed that stone in Vision's head. At least she stopped it. It wasn't for nothing.
Until finish that thought. Until Thanos does what?
He kind of like rolls time back, if you will, reverses time. And at that point, I was like, oh man, I forgot about the power that he's got now. I didn't see that coming. But when it happened, it was like, oh man, he's gonna do it now. He's gonna do it.
Yes, he does it, man. He totally does it. He's got the 6th stone. He pops it into that gauntlet, and he's ready to roll. And all that energy rushes into him, like we've seen before in this film. And you see that moment as soon as it's in, and the camera's like above him, and he looks up, and right then he's ready to snap his fingers. Then suddenly from out of nowhere, Thor, Stormbreaker, plunges that thing into Thanos' chest. And I got to tell you, man, when we first saw this film, I thought, well, that's it. He's done it. Like he's completely done it. This thing's over. He's killed him. And, Thanos is grunting. He's in serious pain. He's feeling every inch of that blade, right? And then at the very last second, when you think that, I'm not going to ruin it, but dude, paint the scene for us, man. What happened? Take it from there.
Thor tells Thanos, says, I told you, you die. And then, of course, Thanos says, you should have went for the head. And I was like, oh no. Yeah, and then he just snaps back and disappears. And Thor can't believe it. No, nobody can believe it. It's like, man, we thought that was it. Of course, Thanos pulled out an ace card from out of nowhere.
No doubt about it. And like you said, it came from out of nowhere. Thanos has activated the completed gauntlet by snapping his fingers. And the moment that he does it, he's immediately transported to a very strange-looking place. And we come to find out later that it's actually the Soul World, which is inside the Soul Stone. He sees a young Gamora who asks if he did it. And he says yes. She asks, what did it cost? And he responds, everything. It's huge, man. This is the thing the one moment that all these heroes were fighting to stop, and it's happened. They failed. And Thor asks Thanos, "What did you do?" And Thanos just teleports away. And it gets serious, man. And then that's when we begin to see what the fans begin referring to as the dusting. And the first death we see is Bucky, and then it continues with many, many others. Half of life all across the universe is gone, including, of course, as we said, Bucky, T'Challa, Groot, Maximoff, Wilson. And it just gets much, much worse from there.
Right before that, another powerful scene, Cap's asking, "Where'd he go? Where'd he go?" You know, it's like nobody has an answer. Nobody has a clue. This guy's just disappeared into thin air. To me, that was another powerful scene.
Very powerful moment indeed. I couldn't have said it better. Things get real when we get back to Titan. It's the same thing begins to happen. Mantis, Drax, Quill, they're all dusted away. Strange, right before he's gone, tells Tony there was no other way. And, dude, the worst for me was Peter. It will always be him. And he keeps telling Tony that it doesn't feel good. He doesn't want to go. And then when Stark grabs hold of him, he says he's sorry. And he dies in Tony's hands. What a moment. And supposedly the direction for this from the Russo brothers to Tom Holland was that, look, you're a kid, you're a small child, and you're scared to death because you don't know what's happening. And man, it translated. Every time I see this scene from this film, I get emotional. The first time I did it, the first time I saw it up until the last time I watched it. And the last time I'm watching it now. And it's just, it's just a tearjerker. It just grabs me every time. What another amazing moment in this film.
Yeah, a real, to me, tearjerker, because they have become like father and son. And Tony, this has just got to be tearing his heart out, literally. And when Peter, finally, right before he disappears or disintegrates, Tony tries to grab one more time, trying to save him somehow, some way, but he knows he's gone, and then he takes his hand and looks at it and puts it up to his face like, oh wow, what, man, that just, the tears started flowing after that.
Yeah, we saw that moment during the previews for this film, and just the sight of Robert Downey on his knees bleeding. You see the wreckage behind him, and he's bruised and battered, and he's not wearing the armor, and something big's happening. And as we said before, there had been rumors of maybe he's going to die in this film. We don't know who all is going to die in this film. But for a long time, I thought it was Cap that died in that moment that we kept seeing during the previews. But, dude, there's no doubt about it. Downey at his finest here. Holland at his finest, absolutely. And, we go back and we see some more of the chaos happening on Earth, the final moments of this film. We see Groot dusted away. We see Wanda gone. We see, back on Titan, of course, we see Drax. And, we're kind of jumping back here a little bit, folks, but when Drax is gone, at the very last moment, he holds his head up, and it's very quick. It's almost like he breathes a sigh of relief, as if he's glad it's over, because, for Drax, his driving motivation from the moment we first saw him in the MCU has been, I have to rejoin my family. I miss them so much, my wife and my child. And first it was about revenge, and then to me, what I took from this was like, maybe now I will be with them. And it's a very odd thing, man, because as it's explained to us later in Endgame, they didn't really die here. It's just that they ceased to exist. And so we get that explanation in Endgame, but we don't really get it here. So to us, it just looks like cold-blooded murder, wiping out half the galaxy, or half the universe, I should say.
It's almost like they've been dreaming, or whatever. Time has stopped for them, so they haven't aged. I didn't think about that. Drax thinking that possibly he was going to be finally, be joining his family in the hereafter. But yeah, I mean, it's just the most gut-wrenching part of the film, Tony losing Peter. I don't know, his surrogate son, I guess you could say. He had to be thinking about how he was going to, if he ever got back to Earth, how would he explain this to Aunt May? How could you? Wow.
Yes, and that's That's a great point, man. And, we didn't know until later, but according to the Russos, May indeed did not survive the snap. But, just imagine everything that's going through Tony's head, the character's head at the very end. He lost, and he lost the kid, as he says in Endgame, and it's over. And very powerful moment. Another powerful moment is one of the last ones we see. We see Thanos. He's on this planet that he's talking about. He's watching the sunrise that he's been talking about, and he seems content that it's over and like he's done a good thing, which is, terrifying all in of itself. And it's a very quiet moment, but again, powerful moments. At the very last thing we see in this film, in the actual film itself, is the Avengers back on Earth, and Cap is sitting on like the jungle floor, and he very quietly just says, "Oh God." And it's gut-wrenching because that's the end of it. There's no music, there's no fanfare, there's no "to be continued." And you're just like, well, that's it. It's done. And a lot of moments, a lot of scenes in this film really get me. That one gets me every time as well.
Yeah, and I remember a friend of mine that I went to see the movie with at the theater, making the point that says, check it out. Look who's left. It's the original six, correlating to the 6 Infinity Stones. And I was like, man, that was an amazing point you just made. I wasn't even thinking about that, but I was like, it made sense. Maybe there's a connection.
It's a great point, man. Really is. You think about how far that they came with these movies, how far this team has come, this cast of characters, from beginning to what appears to be the end. And the reason why, and we keep repeating ourselves through a lot of this show and a lot of these podcasts, man, but the reason why this thing works, the reason why most of the MCU films work so well, is that the Marvel people have handed their properties to the right creators, to the right producers, directors, to the right actors, obviously the right cast. Everyone is on board with telling great stories, and that's exactly what we see here. And we finally get to see Nick Fury. He's with Maria Hill. They're in a black SUV, and we see chaos begin to erupt around them. Helicopter goes in the side of a building. There's a car careening out of control. There's no driver, and we realize, okay, this is the beginning of the dusting, which is happening all across the universe. Maria's dusted, and Sam Jackson goes to the back of the SUV. He realizes this must be global. This must be big. So he grabs the same pager that we saw in Captain Marvel, right? And he, of course, because it's Sam Jackson, he gets out the words "mother," and before he can finish, he's dusted, and the pager hits the ground, and it's the symbol for Captain Marvel. And we have a feeling from that point on, she's going to be the X Factor. She's going to be the one to bring the whole house of cards down as it pertains to Thanos in the next film. It didn't quite play out that way, but that's the impression we were left with. She did make a huge impact, though, for sure. Dude, we've used a lot of words to talk about this film. I don't know of a bigger word than epic. This is an epic, and I just don't think it gets any bigger than that.
Yeah, no other word sums it up as well. The helicopter crashing into the building, it reminded me of 9/11. I hate to point that out, but that's what it made me think of.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I didn't think of that. And, honestly, for this particular universe, maybe this is the MCU's version of 9/11, perhaps on a much larger scale. And look, folks, this is just a film. It's fantasy. None of this stuff is real. I get that. And, we opine about this and we go on and on about it because we're just such big fans and nerds and geeks and whatever other, adjective you want to use. I get it. But, that's in no way to take away from any type of real life situation. So not to make light of anything here, obviously. But, we're fans, as we said, and a lot of what this show is just paying tribute to the things that we love. Movies like this, music, TV, comic books, characters, situations, albums, and commentary on films, and just all this stuff that we just love so much, and that just, sort of becomes the soundtrack and the backdrop of our individual lives. That's the stuff that we bring to you here on the show. So, I'm looking forward to doing Endgame. This has been a big task, doing Infinity War. Obviously, we split it into 2 parts. We had to. It's just such a lot to go through, and Endgame will be no different. But I'm looking forward to that, as I know you are as well, Greg. So, Before we take this home, man, as we always do, I got to get your last word, dude. Give me your last word on Infinity War.
Absolutely, one of the greatest movies that I had the privilege of watching, along with everybody else that went to see it. And shame on you if you didn't, because, I mean, it was the beginning of something really grand and amazing. And I savored every moment, because this had been building up for 10 years. We've been watching these characters in their movies, their solo movies, then the team ups, and we knew that eventually this had to get on such a grand scale that, I mean, there was no coming back. And this was the first part of a larger-than-life movie, in my opinion. I mean, it so many emotions throughout the film. You laughed, you cried, you were in disbelief at certain points, and that's what a movie should do. You should experience all kinds of emotions in movies, and it should be done well. And this was no exception. This was one of the best movies I've ever seen, and kudos to everybody that had a part in it. They phenomenal job. My hat's off. I tip my hat to everybody, and I'm thankful that Marvel did this the way they did it. They did it the right way, and for generations to come, this movie will be something to be marveled at. No pun intended again, but yeah. What else can I say? Great movie. I loved it.
Well said, man. Definitely well said. This film is an achievement. And when we started these 2 episodes, we said, this was the culmination of a lot of films, of a lot of effort, a lot of years time invested by the creators, by the actors, by the crews, by us, the fans, to go along for this ride. And this film, as if you weren't satisfied enough through the course of the MCU, this film it's complete satisfaction. I mean, it does end like Empire. It leaves you hanging. It leaves you wanting more. It leaves you waiting for the resolution. The resolution's coming, folks. Endgame's coming. So, and we know what an epic. Again, the word epic. We know what an epic film that is as well. But this one's special, and it's one that will never be forgotten. As Greg said, it's going to stand the test of time. It's for generations to come, and I firmly believe that as well. So this has been fun. Endgame will be even better, I'm sure. And folks, we're only just getting started. Again, a lot of work put into this by everyone's hands who touched it, and I love this film. I love this stuff so much, I just can't get enough of it. And I can't wait to see what MCU does in the next phase. I'm anxious to see where they go from here. But Infinity War definitely is a classic, and one of the greatest films of all time, in my humble estimation. And that is Avengers Infinity War. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.